Netherlands. We want Europe to be strong. Ultimately, these are matters of national security, and perhaps no current issue makes the situation more clear than what's currently going on with Greenland. Would you like me to say a few words of Greenland? I was going to leave it out of the speech, but I think I would have been reviewed very negatively. I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark, tremendous respect. But every NATO ally has an obligation to be able to defend their own territory. And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory, and hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on Rumble. I'm not European, and I feel insulted listening to Donald Trump telling the European leaders that were it not for us, you would speak German or probably even Japanese. And to be honest with you, that's not a flex, because the Europeans did fight back in the day against Nazi Germany. And the power which sacrificed the most to liberate the Europeans from Nazi Germany was not the United States, it was the Soviet Union. And that doesn't mean at all that you have to be supportive of the Soviet Union, of communism, or any other ideology to acknowledge this simple historical fact. On this channel, I am very much critical of the US foreign policy. Policies made by individuals, handful of individuals in Washington, D.C., handful of individuals who have invested interest in acquisition of other territories, lands, natural resources, expansion. I have always argued on this channel and said that the foreign policy of the United States is not similar to the foreign policy of other countries, where the leaders of these countries base their policy-making decisions on the strategic interests and the national interests of their own countries as nations. Of course, the United States relies on its national interests. It is one of the factors. But on the other hand, we have other factors that are missing in the policy making of other nations. In the United States, we have a class of people, very influential very rich, very capable, and embedded inside the state, the United States of America. They generate billions of profits from influencing policymakers in the United States, and therefore they invest in the political class in the United States. And I believe that the political class in the United States, including Donald Trump, are not some sovereign actors. They're not independent actors. They are tied with special interests of the people who are have invested so much in the political class, to the extent that, personally, this is just my opinion, I believe that 99% of the political class in the United States, in Congress, in Senate, in the administration, in the DOD, in all the sectors, are either compromised or they are under influence. So they cannot truly act independently, even if they want to serve the interests of their own citizens. And that's why you see the deterioration of the financial situation and the social welfare of ordinary American people. Meanwhile, the rich is becoming richer, and the political class is, of course, carving up whatever they can during this 4 year, 6 year, 7 year, 8 year, whatever they can, because they know that their hands are tied and there is an incentive for them to make as much profit as possible during their serving time as a politician. When I say these things, I personally get accused of hating on the United States, and that is not the case. I criticize the foreign policy of the United States, and I criticize the hypocrisy, the double standards of Western politicians who, on one hand, say they champion human rights, democracy, good values, which on the surface are brilliant and beautiful values. But on the other hand, while they are claiming that they support these values, they do exactly the opposite. In places around the world, they call third world countries shithole countries. These people are backward, these people are savages, these people do not deserve our pity. We built a garden and they are the jungle. This is what Borrell, the former EU chief diplomat, has described. This is how he described the world. So when I come and discuss these things with you guys, some people come and say that I'm hating on the United States or on the empire, and I'm not. I'm simply showing you the hypocrisy, the double standards, to the extent that they are smashing people around the world with millions of them, like they did in my country, and then they don't face any justice. And myself, as a self-appointed journalist, which I don't really like the name journalist nowadays because it has been so corrupted and compromised anyways, I myself, as a concerned citizen of the world, I would like to see reform. I would like to see that these politicians, they are taking care of their own citizen and they're not meddling in our own affairs. So when I am criticizing the political class in the United States, I'm actually serving the interests of the ordinary Americans. That's why America First policy actually is a good thing for the Americans and for us. Unfortunately, though, Donald Trump is not an America First president. He is, of course, he thinks that he is serving the interests of the United States, but he is actually a bully. He speaks in an arrogant language. He's still meddling in the affairs of other countries around the world, one of which is Venezuela, Iran, Syria, Palestine, Russia, China, Cuba, you name it. And the people who support Donald Trump, and I have nothing against you guys, nothing personal, I truly believe that you deserve better. You deserve an America First president. You deserve someone who is at least trying to uplift your social and financial status in your own country. Like, if all these wars, interventions, coup d'etats, kidnapping other presidents, regime change ops happening around the world would have served the interests of the Americans, that would have been great. But the value of your dollar has decreased at a greater rate in the past 20, 30 years since the neocon policy came into effect. And your inflation in your country has skyrocketed. You cannot buy a house as your parents used to do. And despite that, you are voting for the same people over and over again after they fool you. Every 4 years, we have someone fooling you to get your voting. And Donald Trump is one of them. Now, at Davos, the World Economic Forum, the Prime Minister of Canada basically said what I have been telling you bluntly in the past years, that the rules-based international order is a myth. And these so-called rules are used as a weapon against other countries and other people by the empire and its subordinates who pretended in the past decades that there is something called rules-based international order in order to persuade and in order to continue this system being imposed on the rest of the world. So if you're excited about today's live streaming, guys, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe to this YouTube channel before we start to the actual analysis. As you're watching this stream, it would be really helpful if you just hit the like button, thumbs up as we continue. So as we speak, Donald Trump was giving the speech at Davos at the World Economic Forum. Many people are asking, what is the World Economic Forum? What is Davos? What is this about? So if you want to summarize, the World Economic Forum, which was just kicked off this week in the Swiss resort city of Davos, a lot of global figures were invited, from politicians, businessmen, academics, and civil society. And it usually lasts 5 days. The annual forum of Davos attempts to shape global agendas and during times that we are witnessing massive global upheavals all around the world. Of course, Donald Trump attended it and he spoke about Greenland, blah, blah, blah. So the WEF, the World Economic Forum, in practice, on paper, is a think tank and event organizer based, as we said, in Switzerland, in Geneva. The first summit of Davos was held in 1971. And back in the day, it was simply just a gathering of business executives. However, over the years, this has expanded and developed. And nowadays, the people who attend Davos, they discuss issues related to economic disparity, climate change, technology, AI, and global cooperation. This is on paper, okay? So this year, 3,000 people attended Davos, from business classes, government officials, NGOs, AI, tech, and beyond. Plus a number of course, approved activists, journalists, and outside observers. Those were approved by Davos. Organizers said that this year 400 top political leaders attended Davos, including 60 heads of state and government and about 850 chairpersons and chief executives of many of the world's leading companies. So we have Trump attending, Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, Scott Bessent, and the rest as well. Now, who is not attending? Iran's foreign minister was invited last year to attend the Davos, but they have withdrawn in Davos the invitation to the foreign minister of Iran because they said that it would not be right after the deadly incidences in Iran. They called it protests. Of course, this was riots in the country. Of course, so they say, I am frozen again. I don't know how to be honest, fix this issue, which is really bothering me. I have already changed the cable today. So video back now. What I will do is, if it's gone, please let me know again. So despite the WEF withdrawing the invitation of the Iranian foreign minister, they kept the invitation of the Israeli foreign minister, or president of Israel in this case, Isaac Herzog, despite the accusations against Israel of committing genocide in Gaza, right? So that's another double standard by the WEF. Our friend says it's not a cable issue, it's a software drivers issue probably. I've been using the same laptop, the same cables, and the same webcam, and everything was working greatly until recently. Maybe I have to do some research. Maybe I have to update my webcam, which is a DJI Osmo Pocket 3 I am using, which is great actually as a quality. And maybe it's the webcam that I have to update or do something, right? If somebody knows something, please drop your in the comments below. So they have withdrawn the invitation to the foreign minister of Iran, but they have kept the invitation for the president of Israel. I'm so shocked. So this year, on the agenda, they say this is a year of a spirit of dialogue, and they will held 200 sessions to tackle a wide array of issues ranging from geopolitics and artificial intelligence to climate change. And this year is, of course, it's not like exponentially different from previous years, but this year we have the issue of Venezuela, Greenland, and Iran, the tariff war by the United States, and many European leaders feel like they are blackmailed by Donald Trump. The issue of AI, which will take a big space in the discussions in Davos. In any ways, why are we discussing Davos and WEF today? Because in my opinion, the WEF is a meeting of a gathering of very influential people, company executives, NGO executives, heads of states, bank executive directors of banks, for example. And these people are basically discussing without any democratic mandate to tackle issues that directly impact our lives. Climate change, AI, pandemic, education, different things, digital ID. Those are very important things that they have been discussing, including how to respond to potential pandemics. So if a pandemic happens in the future, these people have already discussed it and discussed how would they respond to it. And that explains the scripted reaction and response of most of the governments around the world whose officials have already attended the Davos and World Economic Forum meetings in the past years. For example, during the Corona times, when we were surprised to see that countries from New Zealand, Australia, and all the way to Europe and the United States, basically, with few exceptions, are responding in a similar manner to the same crisis, because this was already discussed previously in the World Economic Forum. And one of the ways that they have discussed to respond to it were the vaccine passports, was the digitalization of our medical, our medical file, personal medical file, in addition to digital IDs, right? And we've been warning against this in the past because I believe that the digital ID and the digital currencies are meant to increase the powers and the wealth of the rich and the capable, and decrease the wealth and the sovereignty of the ordinary people. There is something very important when we discuss organizations or gatherings like the WEF or the World Economic Forum, Davos, and that is, these people's intentions are not to serve the people. And this type of discussions should be inside the parliament, where the elected bodies, basically who should represent the people, should discuss these cases. Instead, what they do, basically, they act in the World Economic Forum as if they are a world government, and that somehow they have the legitimacy to act and discuss how to act in the future when we are faced with crisis. And this, I'm saying, probably would give them the incentive, the motivation to create crisis. Like, for example, if pandemics would increase their suppression of free speech, their suppression of our freedom of expression, their control over our finances, our movements, that would create an incentive to exaggerate, let's say, health crisis around the world. And all I'm saying is there are, of course, pandemics, there are deadly viruses, but sometimes, because the media is in their hands, because these politicians are under absolute control, they can manufacture a hysteria among the people through fear mongering. And when enough ordinary people are afraid of death, they would not act rationally. And this is what the World Economic Forum has been trying to do in different places around the world. And that's why I am very cautious and very critical of the World Economic Forum, because I believe their goal and their intention is to grab more power from us for them. That's why when people come and say, for example, on this channel, that Kevork is somehow a right-wing person, etc., those people are completely, sorry to say, the R word, right? I see things in a more left-wing lens than many people anticipate. For me, this struggle is vertical. It's a class struggle. And I'm not considering myself a socialist or a communist or even a left-wing. I don't like these words. I don't like these labelings. All I'm saying is, myself as an ordinary citizen of the world, I'm always eyeing into where the power is and whether or not they're abusing this power. Because there are centers of power around the world which they don't abuse the powers and the authorities they have. That's completely fine. I have no problem with people with power, with strength, with influence, with money. In the contrary, good for them. Those who make money, that's great. Everybody wants to become rich. You want to become rich. Nobody can say that I don't want to become rich. That's a complete lie. My problem is with the people who, after some time and after making enough money, they become like a psychopath. and this is not like, I'm not generalizing on rich people. I'm just saying some people, when they make enough money, after a certain point, money no longer continues to be the ultimate goal, but rather control, influence. So they start building their own empire. They start playing God. They want to change people's minds. They want to change people's attitudes. They want to change people's lifestyles. They want to intervene in our personal affairs. They want to present digital currencies. They want to present digital IDs. They start meddling in our affairs because human beings like control. And with the enormous money and wealth, some people feel like they are Superman. They want to do more. They want to grab more. They want to control. And this is a question that I've been receiving a lot during the Corona times, when people used to say, but why do you think, like, they're already billionaires? Do you really think that they want to make money? No. Who said they just want to make money? But more money gives them the space to maneuver and influence global affairs, including your personal life. This is how people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and the rest think. Those are not just some simple people who one of them is the head of Amazon and he's making money and serving his people and that's it. No, he is buying a newspaper in order to influence people's minds. The other one buys X because he wants to also monopolize some of the narratives. And the same thing applies to Bill Gates. Why would Bill Gates invest money in the BBC or in the Guardian or in other places, in universities, in research centers? What is it that a billionaire, what is it for a billionaire to invest in an education system, except for shaping the academia into a direction that would serve the investments of these people in certain places, whether it is scientific, whether it is food, whether it is health? Why is it that Bill Gates buys enormous land, agricultural land in the United States? Land is food resource for us. Why is he buying all this? For example, one of our friends says Larry Flink, CEO of BlackRock, is the interim executive chairman of WEF. Do you see this interconnection of these people being embedded and invested in many projects that directly impact us? For example, the CEO of BlackRock, he's invested so much into the LGBT community, and I have nothing against gays, lesbians. Your sexuality is your sexuality. Your gender is your gender. But if you come and pay money to these communities or to push and promote and normalize it among the companies, for example. So you see during the July month, for example, the Pride month, every single company changes its flag into the LGBT community because they are giving them scores and rankings, the BlackRock and others, they're giving them rankings to classify and say if this is LGBT friendly or not. If you're not friendly into LGBT community, then you're not worthy of our support. This is ridiculous, in my opinion. In any ways, I think during such times, we have to be a little bit very careful of what these big tech and billionaires are saying and doing and the prophecies they are claiming, right? So during Davos, the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, he used a major address to declare that the so-called rules-based order is effectively dead in practice and urged the world's middle powers to unite against growing coercion by larger states. So I will show you the first video of him talking about this case. Just let me be sure. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. So this is a big, big speech at WEF. Take a look.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And this aphorism of Thucydides is presented as inevitable, as the natural logic of international relations reasserting itself. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. So what are our options? In 1978, the Czech dissident Václav Havel, later president, wrote an essay called The Power of the Powerless. And in it, he asked a simple question: how did the communist system sustain itself? And his answer began with a greengrocer. Every morning, this shopkeeper places a sign in his window: "Workers of the world unite." He doesn't believe it. No one does. But he places the sign anyway to avoid trouble, to signal compliance, to get along. And because every shopkeeper on every street does the same, the system persists. Not through violence alone, but through the participation of ordinary people in rituals they privately know to be false. Havel called this living within a lie.
Go on.
The system's power comes not from its truth, but from everyone's willingness to perform as if it were true. And its fragility comes from the same source. When even one person stops performing, when the greengrocer removes his sign, the illusion begins to crack. Friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. For decades. For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability. And because of that, we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false. That the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works.
This is just hilarious, in my opinion, what he said here. And some people say, don't trust him. I'm not trusting him. But what he said is, friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down. For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we call the rules-based international order. However, we knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient, that trade rules were enforced asymmetrically, and we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. The one thing that he does, like, first of all, everything he said, I personally say, and I get accused of being hating on the West, hating on the United States, which is definitely not the case. But when the Prime Minister of Canada says at Davos now, this becomes like the normal rhetoric and the normal speech. However, what he, the Prime Minister of Canada, doesn't say is that Canada itself benefited from these double standards of the so-called rules-based international order until the United States of America, represented by Donald Trump, and in this empire in decline, because I have explained this on the show, that the United States of America, after pillaging many regions around the world, in the Middle East, in Asia, in Central Asia, in different places around the world, in Latin America, they are now coming after Europe through tariff taxes or the tariff war, and the intention of planners in Washington, D.C. to take over Greenland and probably also Canada. So as we say in Arabic, when the knife came to their neck, now they're confessing the fact that there was no rules-based international order, and this was just a hypocritical system to advance the interests of the American empire. Meanwhile, these smaller countries in strength and power in Europe and in Canada, they used to benefit from these double standards in the past, and now they no longer benefit from it, but rather they will pay the price of it after closing their eyes and they pretending that nothing was going on in the past. So you, the Prime Minister of Canada, you should tell your people the truth. You should tell them that we in Canada actually participated in this double game because we used to benefit from it. And now it is no longer beneficial. So we are now turning our back on the US empire, basically, which is only because these people will lose their status and leverage if the US occupies these lands. And the horrendous thing in this case is that they, in Canada, in Europe, they went blindly behind the United States. They destroyed their relationship with Russia. They destroyed their own energy resources, cheap energy resources for the United States. And now the United States is basically spitting on them. So they have still the opportunity to fix the relationship with Russia, to improve the relationship with China, and join the attempt to create a multipolar world, but an honest multipolar world and not hypocritical multipolar world. If these people want to come to the multipolar world with their own mindset and with their own hypocritical attitude, let them stay there, because they will be the biggest loser. Time changes so fast, and it seems the tide of change is very strong, and the Europeans have, in my opinion, three options. One is to become independent actor on the global scene collectively, which without cheap energy resources, it would be very difficult for them to become a strong player on the global scene because they will not have cheap production. Meanwhile, China, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I just have to double check this information. Let me double check. How many electric cars can China produce per day? So let me just check quickly. So in total, in 2024, China produced 17.3 million electric cars in 2024. Meanwhile, Germany's automobile industries are declaring bankruptcy, and they are kicking out tens of thousands of labor from German automobile industries. And with the high production costs, they cannot play an independent role. So they will need some sort of rapprochement with Russia and China in this case, right? Even if they want to play this independent role. And the second option, first option is to become an independent player as Europe, but by reconciling with China and Russia. The second is to join the multipolar world, basically, with the rising powers and become an integral part, an active player in this multipolar world to accelerate it, right? But this requires certain, let's say, measures against the United States to protect their transition. But this cannot happen if you have all these American troops on European soil, right? So Europeans are really stuck in this situation. And they have done it for to themselves. The European leaders have done this to themselves. And they have been warned. I mean, sometimes for me, it's difficult to understand, to be honest with you, what these European leaders have been doing with their own countries, the least to say, with their own countries. Let me just show you a few things, because so we have we're at the table, we're on the menu. Okay. So this is what the Prime Minister of Canada is basically saying regarding the American arrogance against European countries, basically. Now, I will show you a video of Professor Jiang. Professor Jiang, of course, many of you probably know him. He's doing lots of lectures on his own YouTube channel, and recently he was on a show of a friend of ours, Danny Haifong, and he spoke about exactly this video of the Canadian Prime Minister. And he says Canada has never been a sovereign nation. It's never been a democracy. It is a resource colony for the Anglo-American Empire, and it has turned into a toxic asset. Let's take a look.
For whatever reason, people in Canada believe that Carney and Trump hate each other. Carney is his great rival to Trump. But guys, let's go into some history, okay? Mark Carney used to work for Goldman Sachs in New York. So we can imagine that he knew Trump, or they were socializing in the same circles. That Mark Carney then went on to become governor of the Bank of Canada, and then the first foreign governor of the Bank of England. Okay, and then he became a vice chair of Brookfield. What is Brookfield? Well, Brookfield are the people in 2018 who basically bailed out Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner had this white elephant property called 666 Fifth Avenue in New York City. It was costing him a lot of money. He was about to go bankrupt. Then Brookfield came in and saved his ass. Okay, and people argue it was to curry favor with Trump. Mark Carney has never been elected to any office before he became Prime Minister of Canada. And during the leadership race, when Justin Trudeau resigned, basically all the other candidates faded away and gave the nomination to Mark Carney. Everyone expected Pierre Poilievre, who is the leader of the Conservatives, to triumph in the election, because after 10 years of Trudeau, everyone was just sick of the Liberals. They were sick of Liberal policy, and there were many who believed that Carney was actually the real mastermind, the puppet master behind Trudeau, and that's what explained the housing problem, the immigration problem in Canada. But then what Trump did was just threaten Canada and says, we're going to make you into the 51st state. And Pierre Poilievre, he's basically imploded. He just basically went away, and they gave the election to Mark Carney. And then Trump called Mark Carney to congratulate him. And people, for whatever reason, Canadians are probably among the most stupid people in the world. They actually believe that Carney is working for Canadians. He doesn't work for Canada. He has never worked for Canada. He works for the city of London. He works for Wall Street. And right now, this transnational capital are aligned in their interest, which is to open up the China market for international finance. Again, the last store of wealth in the world that is untapped are the Chinese household savings. Every other Western nation is overstretched. Like Canadians have maxed out their credit cards. Canadian household debt is over 100% of their income. Okay, so like these people in the West are just bankrupt. Okay, the Chinese still have savings. So what do? You open up the China market and you allow Chinese to buy real estate in Canada. You allow them to send their kids overseas to study in Canada. You allow them to buy Canadian dollars. Okay, so that's the grand plan in motion. And Carney is just is just one of these agents that want to open up China. Okay, so that's the game plan here. And the idea that Carney actually represents Canada, he doesn't care. All his money is the United States, man. His company is an American company, essentially. Right? So the idea that the enemy's leaders in the West, they represent the people, it's just complete nonsense. It is amazing.
At a given moment.
So some people are of course, they like Professor Jiang a lot, and other people are saying, don't you think he's a Chinese propagandist? I don't think he is a propagandist. I have watched his lectures, and I think you're confusing between opinions, arguments, and propaganda. I think many people have different opinions. You can call, if you like my opinion, propaganda. Many people say so. But I have people coming over 105,000 subscribers of this channel probably do not think so. So it just depends. This is subjective how you see and how you perceive the information. Of course, he is not a friend of the Western rules-based international order. So if you like to call him a propagandist, that's your description, actually. But for you guys, like Professor Jiang also follows me on X, so I can send him a DM. And I've been thinking about inviting him to the show. But I truly didn't know what to discuss with him. He's talking about a lot of, let's say, conspiracies and theories and the Illuminati and the secret societies and what is this called, Pax Judaica, for example, things that this was not my niche, right? Like I don't know much about these things, so I don't like to host someone where I'm not like really well informed about this topic. But if you have watched his lectures, please let me know in the comments below, whether in the live chat or in the comments after this live streaming is over, just for me to know. Like, I can send him an invite, but what do you want me to discuss with him? You know the niche of this channel well, those who are following it. So let me know, please, in the comments below. And while we're watching, this is just for me to quickly check on Rumble as well. So we are over 550 people watching this stream now live on YouTube and on Rumble. Guys, as you're watching this, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, thumbs up as you're watching this, because it helps me a lot with the algorithm of YouTube, and this video would be recommended to more people when this stream is over. I would really appreciate it if you do that. Now, it's not only the Prime Minister of Canada who was not really happy with the recent changes happening by the United States, but also, it seems, the Belgian Prime Minister, Bart De Wever, I hope I'm not butchering his family name, and he says being happy vassal is one thing, being an unhappy slave is quite another.
But now so many red lines are being crossed that you have the choice between your self-respect. Being a happy vassal is one thing, being a miserable slave is something else. If you back down now, you're going to lose your dignity. And that's probably the most precious thing you can have in a democracy. It's your dignity.
So being happy vassal is something which basically he's saying, like, we have been vassals to the United States, but we were happy because we used to benefit from this relationship. Now we no longer benefit from this vassalage situation. Therefore, we feel like we are becoming a slave, and that is hurting our dignity. And in my opinion, Mr. Prime Minister of Belgium, you should have felt also in the past, when you were in a situation where you benefited from this relationship with the United States, that your dignity is also hurt, because you were basically benefiting from a type of relationship which harmed and hurt the world immensely around the world. Like, if you benefited from it, that doesn't mean the rest of the world benefited from it. The rest of the world actually paid the price for this type of hypocritical international system under which everybody is told that there are rules and regulations, but these rules and regulations are only imposed and applied on certain places and on certain players because they like to have further hegemony and further control and further financial gains. So I think that would have been a better and more comprehensive feeling and description of the situation. So, my friends, during such times, it is important for us to shed light on a few other things, one of which is, of course, what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in the World Economic Forum. And lots of confessions coming from the World Economic Forum nowadays.
What do you want to say about sanctions, something else you've been working on, of course? What are you planning there in terms of Iran and the impact there? Do sanctions actually work? And the same question with regard to 500% secondary sanctions or tariffs on countries who purchase energy products from Russia.
Okay, so two things there. There are treasury sanctions. And if you look at a speech that I gave at the Economic Club of New York last March, I said that I believe the Iranian currency was on the verge of collapse, that if I were an Iranian citizen, I would take my money out. President Trump ordered Treasury and our OFAC division, Office of Foreign Asset Control, to put maximum pressure on Iran, and it's worked. Because in December, their economy collapsed. We saw a major bank go under. The central bank has started to print money. There is a dollar shortage. They are not able to get imports. And this is why the people took to the street. So this is economic statecraft, no shots fired. And things are moving in a very positive way here.
So, will the Prime Minister of Belgium and the Prime Minister of Canada basically address this? That basically Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent boasting live on TV in World Economic Forum that the sadistic American sanctions against Iran have deliberately devalued Iran's currency, and that's why the Iranians took to the streets, or that's why they went to the streets to demonstrate, to protest. And he says, quote, "This is economic statecraft, not shots fired." So, are we going to speak about this, that how the United States has waged an economic warfare against Iran in order to urge the people to go to the streets against their government, and then they bring in their CIA trained rioters in order to cause civil war in the country? Are we going to discuss how the United States destroyed the Syrian economy, which the European leaders cheered and boasted and celebrated until they brought Jolani to power? Are we going to speak about these things, or we're only going to address these inequalities when they target Canada and European countries? So if we want to gain the trust of the people, if we're going to seriously speak about reform, we must address all cases, and we must stop this type of practices all around the world. If it's going to be exclusive to you when you are hurt, nobody is going to believe you. Whether this is the Prime Minister of Canada or the Prime Minister of Belgium. So I've been doing some quick WEF on X, and I was just trying to see who is attending and who is not attending, and then caught my attention what Kim.com said here. Of course, we're not endorsing every word is written in this, and hi to all that you can read in Davos, including the politicians. So if we are going to believe what Kim.com described about the politicians there, then I have news for you, my friends. I have news. Could you guess who's going to attend the World Economic Forum? Somebody who has never been to Davos before. Could you type some of the names maybe in the live chat? Let's check. In the next 20 seconds, I will just read the comments. I will just try to make it easier for you. There is someone in the Middle East going to attend Davos. It's already mentioned in the in the comments below. So, my friends, Syria's al-Sharaa heads to Davos, ending years of global isolation. Look how they have described this on Al Monitor, right? This is an information psyop, basically. Like Syria's if you are serious about journalism, you should write Syria's self-appointed president heads to Davos, ending years of sovereignty, right? This is how it should be. That what they do basically is they are psyoping the people over and over and over again about trying to give the people the impression that this guy has finally broke the siege and the isolation of Syria. From who? From what? From the WEF? Is that some an achievement to be part of this big club of people aspiring to and working on to crush us? Is that something like to celebrate? I truly do not understand what kind of world are we living in. There is one more thing that I have to mention here. I've been seeing a lot of Palestinians recently, unfortunately, in Gaza, in Qatar, in Turkey, celebrating Jolani's war against the SDF, against the Kurds. So we have some great news for the Palestinians who celebrate Jolani and basically support him. He issued a new decree, a new law, banning. Oh, let me show you. Let me show you, my Habibis. Yeah, Habibis. So, let me show you the news, guys. So, Jolani banned Palestinians from entering Syria, except under certain conditions, and those conditions are either for medical purposes or with sponsors. So if you're Palestinian now, you need a sponsor to visit Syria. And this means, of course, sarcasm, that Syria has become now the beating heart of the Saudi-Turkish-led axis of resistance against Israel, right? History is laughing, my friends. History is laughing. I have no words for these Palestinians who support Jolani because they're basically shooting themselves in the leg. They are useful idiots. And I have a lot to say about them. And because I'm someone who sympathizes with the Palestinians being under occupation and massacred by the Israeli occupation forces, somebody who reported about the Israeli crimes against the Palestinians and championed dignity for the Palestinians, I find it really hard to swallow that people, Palestinians, and I'm not saying that the majority of them, but many, many of them who support Hamas, they support Jolani. And that's very shameful. And it shows why Palestine and the Palestinians have not been liberated from occupation and not received dignity yet, because they were misled and they were Al Jazeera-tized, basically. Have been rotten and corrupted with sectarianism. There is no other reason to support Jolani but because he is a Sunni. There is no other reason. Had Assad made 10% of the concessions and with Israel, which Jolani has done, they would have called him a traitor. They would have waged a holy war against him. Phase 2. And you know that that's right. That's correct. But because Jolani is Sunni, they celebrate him until this moment. Very unfortunate. I'm very sad to see this decay in the, unfortunately, this discussion about Syria and Palestine. Guys, I would like to thank you all for tuning in today to today's live streaming. I appreciate every single one of you, whether you watch this on YouTube or on Rumble. If you like this content, please hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to Syriana Analysis. How many subscribers do we have? 105,000 or 106,000? That would be, it's great. I'm happy with it. It's just, we can do more. if you like to support this channel, guys, there are different means in the description below. You can support me on Patreon. You can support me on Buy Me Coffee. There are different means, 4 or 5 means you can support this independent work the way you like, with the mean you like and the amount you like. There is nothing, it's not a must at all. It's just an independent work I do here with 0 sponsorship and 0 funding. So it's all thanks to you. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I will definitely see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time with Tarek Chiril Amar. Exceptionally, we're going to do our show Cold War 2.0 tomorrow because on Friday he cannot do it. So peace be upon you, upon your families, guys. Salam.